Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Kaelyn. I'm a first-year PhD student in History and African American Studies. I make academic lifestyle content all about my life as a graduate student, as well as informational videos to help you to achieve your academic goals. I get asked all the time how to prepare for graduate school while you're still in undergrad, while you're still in college. What types of connections should you be making? What type of research should you be doing in order to be competitive for graduate school when you graduate? So today I'm going to be talking about my personal experience as well as my advice for how to go about preparing for graduate school while you're still in college. This will highlight how to find research opportunities, how to improve your resume, how to develop your written sample, etc. I transferred to UCLA from community college back in 2017 and graduated from UCLA with honors in 2019. Given that I only had 2 years at UCLA, I really had to make the most of my time, and I had to be strategic about the way that I went about finding research opportunities and preparing for graduate school. When I got into UCLA, I knew that I wanted to pursue a master's at the very least, and at the time I thought I wanted to go to law school. So I knew that I wanted to gain research experience as well as to build up my resume in any way that I could. So I'm going to talk about my experience as I go through these pieces of advice and take you guys along. If you have any questions, please let me know. So let's go ahead and get started. So my first piece of advice is to explore. This should include taking various classes and being able to broaden your scope of knowledge and develop your ideas early. Throughout your college career, you should be taking various courses within your major, your minor, and in other fields in order to expose yourself to new ideas and different methods, different ways of thinking. And from that, take note of what interests you the most and what you tend to have the most questions about, because that may be something that you want to dig into as a potential research project down the line. The next thing is to go beyond your reading. Look at the required readings, the suggested readings, and perhaps even go and talk to your professors or TAs about other readings that they may suggest on the topics that interest you most. Set aside even just an hour a week in order to dig into literature that is not necessarily in your field or in your subfield, or that may be just of interest to you. Scavenge the internet, look through WorldCat, look at the library resources, and just see what's interesting to you. One thing that I used to do when I was in college was actually going and exploring the library stacks. So I knew I really loved studying early America, and I was really interested specifically in slavery. So I would go to our main research library, go to the stacks, and specifically look for early America. And then without having a specific book in mind, I would just look through the stacks and just see what drew my interest. I would grab the books that I found interesting, start reading them, or even bring them home. And by the end of my time at UCLA, I had well over 100 books in my possession that I unfortunately had to return. Additionally, you might want to check out some of the public lectures and conferences that are offered at your school. You may not need to go to any of the professional conferences for, say, the American Historians Association, but you might want to look at some of the smaller conferences that are being offered at your university that may be publicly accessible. Talk to your professors and see what they may suggest, but just keep an eye on the events pages on the departments that you are most interested in, and just attend as many events as you can possibly fit into your schedule. When I was in undergrad, I tried to make sure that I attended one public lecture per week. So just try to expose yourself to as many different ideas as possible. This will allow you to know what is currently being produced in your field of study, and will also open your eyes to different methods and things that you may want to implement in your own research down the line. Number 2 is to network, and this includes professors, graduate students, and people even beyond your university. The one piece of advice everyone's going to give you is to go to office hours, to communicate with your professors, and to build that relationship. But the next thing that I'm going to recommend that you do is actually take multiple classes with the same professor. So this not only will allow you to develop a relationship with them in an organic way, but it will allow you to actually develop that relationship to the point where they may be willing to be an advisor on an undergraduate thesis, or may even ask you to become a research assistant. Find the classes that you find the most interesting, take a class, and if you really enjoy that professor and the way they teach and the subject, then continue taking classes with them. This is what I did in undergrad. I ended up taking 5 classes with my undergraduate advisor, and he was such an incredible mentor to me. His advice and his tutelage and mentorship and guidance was the most important thing that I got out of my undergraduate experience, and the way that he guided me through writing the undergraduate thesis and his criticism was absolutely crucial to my success in graduate school and in the graduate school admissions scheme. So make sure that you develop those relationships with your professors, go to office hours, and also make sure that you are at events where they may be in attendance. You want to show them that you are dedicated to this field of study and that you are developing your research as a future scholar, not just as a student that is acting performatively. Also, talk to graduate students. They have a wealth of knowledge, and oftentimes they are closer to the admissions process than your professors. Though those professors may be on the committees, they may not know all of the intricacies that go into actually writing those statements of purpose today and being able to cater them to each individual program. So talk to graduate students about their experience, ask them what schools that they recommend, talk to them about how to write a statement of purpose, how to write that application, so that way you too can be a successful graduate student in the future. The next is to seek outside help. So any type of mentorship that you can gain is going to be useful. Being able to broaden your network is essential for your academic and professional success in general, but beyond that, also try to reach out to professors and scholars outside of your university. When I was an undergrad, I was working on my undergraduate thesis, and I actually had my advisor reach out on my behalf to a professor at the University of Virginia to see if he knew of any sources, and I actually got to go meet with him on a travel grant when I was visiting DC for research. Additionally, I ended up talking to that professor when I was applying to graduate school, so being able to develop those connections early on is going to be critical. The next thing is probably the most obvious, which is to focus on research. So whether that's an undergraduate thesis, becoming a research assistant for a professor or a graduate student, or even doing an independent project with your professor, you want to make sure that you are developing your research experience early, because this is going to be one of the most crucial pieces in your application when you go to apply to graduate school. Research experience, developing various types of methods, is one of the most important things that you can do as an undergraduate to prepare yourself for graduate school, not only for the admission cycle, but also to be a successful graduate student overall. An honors thesis is typically about a year-long project, but it varies depending on your school, in which case you're going to be developing some type of novel research. It's not going to be quite as in-depth as, say, a graduate student would be developing, but you can really turn this project into something that will get you ahead in the graduate admission scheme. Samples of my writing for my undergraduate thesis is what got me into Oxford as well as into Yale for my PhD. So having a strong written sample and developing that research over time with the help of an advisor is going to be critical. Another option is to become a research assistant, especially if you're in STEM. Being able to become a research assistant within a lab is going to be crucial for your success and for the development of your techniques. Additionally, this is an excellent way to develop a relationship with your PI, so with your advisor or your director or supervisor, even if that's a graduate student, and they will likely write letters of recommendation for you down the line. So make sure that you are looking for research opportunities on the class website, the lab's websites, as well as just going to your professors or the graduate students and ask if they are seeking out a research assistant will be really helpful. One of the other options is to do an independent study. So while I was working on my undergraduate thesis, I actually did an independent study for 1 quarter with one of my favorite professors, and I actually was able to develop the project or the idea and the proposal that ended up being what I used to get into Oxford, as well as what I used to get into Yale. The way you go about doing independent research is often by taking multiple classes with that professor and then reaching out to them to see if they'd be willing to work with you one-on-one. So just check all of your opportunities, communicate with your professors, and see what opportunities are out there, because you're going to want to make sure that you are developing that type of experience in undergrad, so that way you are as marketable as possible when you go to apply to graduate school, but also so you are prepared for graduate level coursework. The next piece of advice that I have is to develop various methods. One of the most important things about academic work and scholarship is being able to try various angles and methods and seeing what works. So seek guidance while you're working through these problems. Talk to your advisor, but also talk to your other professors and see if they may have some insights, as well as graduate students and even your peers. Oftentimes the best ideas or fixes that I came up with were because I was just having a casual conversation with a friend and I had an aha moment. So make sure that you're talking about your work and workshopping it with other people, and ask your advisor questions. If you're not sure what angle to take, talk to them about your ideas and see what they think is the most viable. The next piece is actually to gain professional experience. So on top of gaining your research experience, developing your written sample, etc., you're going to want to build up your resume. And the reason you want to gain a professional experience, whether that's through internships or other types of jobs, or even taking time out of school after college in order to gain some professional experience before graduate school, these are the reasons why it's super important. One, professional work will help you develop your research methods as well as problem-solving skills. Before I went to college, I actually worked as a professional equestrian, so I was a professional athlete for 4 years. I also worked in a medical device consulting firm in the Bay Area where I developed research on medical devices as well as regulatory pathways for market, for startups, and the methods for organization, problem solving, and project management that I learned in those jobs had been so helpful to me as a graduate student, and I'm really glad that I had that professional experience before I went to school because it helped me understand what I was good at and what I wasn't good at. The next piece is that it will obviously help you develop your resume. It is another thing that you can add to your resume that will diversify your application from the others that are in the stack. Oftentimes, undergraduate students will apply directly to graduate school, especially master's programs, and will have very little experience outside of school, in which case they will go straight through to the PhD and then onto the job market with skills that are very much pertaining to academia, but which may not make you the most marketable among your peers. And lastly, gaining professional experience is important because it allows you to mature. It allows you to mature your ideas and develop your thinking processes, as well as to develop your relationships, and may allow you to think more clearly about your decision. Graduate school is a great undertaking, especially if you are applying for masters, that you are going to have to take on a serious amount of debt in order to attend. There's less funding for graduate school than there is for undergrad. Make sure that the opportunity benefits outweigh the cost. So weigh all your options, talk to your mentors, and make sure that this is the right path for you. Which leads me to my final point, which is to prepare your plan early. I have an academic consulting business which focuses on admissions, but also provides resources for students seeking to navigate the academic world. So once you've decided that you do want to go to graduate school, there's many steps that you can take in order to prepare yourself. I've already gone through many of them, but the last piece is to actually establish that plan and to do your research and see where it is you might want to end up. One piece of advice is to research the various programs and to look at the work that current graduate students and professors are developing. From there, you're going to be able to see what type of work really excites you, what doesn't excite you, and what programs may be a good fit. These things are going to evolve. You're going to go into interviews and you're going to do more research on these programs and interact with potential advisors, and you may change your mind about which programs are the right fit, but this is the first step that you can take in order to prepare yourself, but also to get excited about graduate school. It's one of the first things that I end up doing with my academic planning clients. So see what your options are, explore a little bit, and do your research. The next thing that you're going to want to do is consider your proposal and start workshopping your ideas. One thing that I caution against is saying that you are going to go to graduate school and expand upon your undergraduate research. A significant number of my clients that are coming directly from undergrad think that they are just going to continue to develop their undergraduate research into graduate school. And I caution against this mostly because when you apply to graduate school, you want to show those committees that you have developed your way of thinking and that you are able to develop ideas that are not just what you were working on in undergrad. So even if it's just tangential to what the project that you're working on, or is changing the framework, or is looking from a slightly different angle, that's perfectly fine. You just need to be able to market those things in your proposal when you go to apply to graduate school. So start thinking about those things early, and additionally start workshopping them with your advisor as well as other groups in order to see which project may be the most viable and what most excites you. Lastly, you're going to want to talk to your potential recommenders ahead of time and let them know your plans. While you're in college, it's the best time to get recommenders on your side and develop those relationships. So like I said, taking multiple classes with the same professor and developing your relationship with them beyond the classroom. So being able to talk to them in office hours, talk about your plans, talk about your goals, the research that you hope to develop, etc. So that way they are aware that you may be asking them for a letter of recommendation down the line. And then when you are a senior and you're going to apply to graduate school directly out of undergrad is when you're going to want to talk to them about actually drafting that letter of recommendation. Because professors often want at least 1 to 2 months leeway before they have to submit a recommendation letter. So knowing that that is coming up for them will be useful and will also show them that you are planning ahead. All right, I just threw a lot of information at you all. I hope that that was useful to you. If you have any questions, please let me know in a comment down below. If you would like to meet with me and discuss your academic plan, then go ahead and click the link down below in order to schedule a consultation or join office hours. If you enjoyed this video, please remember to give it a thumbs up, and if you are not yet subscribed, please hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye everybody.